Good evening. We will get started in just a few minutes. Just to let you know, the meeting is being recorded. All right, let's get started. Welcome to tonight's community conversation in the Mount Vernon district on active transportation as part of the ActiveFairfax Transportation Plan project. And it's a fitting day today, being Earth Day. Active transportation is, of course, a very environmentally friendly way to get around. So the meeting agenda for today, and I'm sorry, I should introduce myself first. My name is Nicole Winans. I'm with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. I'm an active transportation planner, as well as the project manager for this project. And I'm joined here by Tom Bouchatney, the director of the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, as well as Chris Wells, who is the program manager of the Active Transportation Program, as part of the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, as well as Lauren Delmar, who will be helping me with the technological logistics here, reading questions and being the MC. So thank you, Lauren, for helping out. And Lauren is our, she's an active transportation engineer, as well as our pedestrian program manager. So the agenda for today's meeting is, Diego Rodriguez Cabrera also joined. I see he's with the Mount Vernon Supervisor Office. Welcome, Diego. Let's start with the meeting logistics to go over how this conversation is going to happen in a virtual space. Usually we would have this meeting face-to-face and then have a conversation, but unfortunately this year we will need to meet online. So we will go over some of the ways you can participate in this conversation tonight. Then we will take a step back and look at what is active transportation and what are active transportation facilities that we are hoping to plan for as part of this project. Then we will look at how can we plan for active transportation in the future and what is this project about, and then discuss next steps and have open discussion and final Q&A at the end of this meeting. But there will be time for discussion of individual modes like pedestrian and bike issues separately, as well as hiking, mountain biking, and equestrian issues earlier on in the presentation. So hopefully we'll have a good discussion tonight. So the meeting logistics involve, this is, as I mentioned, is being recorded so that more people can see it, that we're not able to join tonight, and we will post this video on the Fairfax County project website, which can be found at fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/bike-walk/ActiveFairfax. If you would like to ask a question, please use the Webex Q&A feature, which you can find on the bottom right, and you can open the window and type in the question anytime during the presentation, and then when we get to a discussion, we can read the question and share with everyone. If you would like to answer a question and participate in the discussion, you can use the Webex Chat feature, and you can do so by opening the chat window, also at the bottom right, and type in your question. But the best way really to join this conversation is verbally. So we encourage you to speak up and make your voice heard. And it's a little bit easier if you speak to have a forth and back between the question. So if you would like to speak, you would need to raise your hand because you're muted and we have to unmute you. If you're done with your question, you can take your hand back down. If you're calling in today, please press *3 to raise your hand and also to lower your hand again. All right, let's get started. What is active transportation?
Oh,
So active, yes?
Supervisor Stork has joined us.
Oh,
So if we
that's
want to
nice
just
of you.
introduce Supervisor Stork from the Mount Vernon district. And Supervisor Stork, did you want to add anything before we started?
Just 1 minute. Thank you to everybody. Whenever are we ready to go, or should I say something now, or?
You can.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize we were live and working. So, so welcome everybody. Glad you're here. And active transportation is totally something I'm very passionate about, and one that I know that we're making strides. We have a long way to go, but we are working, I know, collaboratively, not only in the district, not only my office, but with Fairfax County Department of Transportation, but also with Virginia Department of Transportation to do everything we can to ensure the safety and opportunities for people to ride, walk, and get around in ways that are safe and hopefully separated from vehicles. So that is our focus, and you're going to hear a lot about that tonight. And we look forward to your comments and sharing that not only with FCDOT, which should be your principal way of doing that, but if you see something there that you're not sure about, or you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to contact my office. Diego Rodriguez Cabrera is our transportation person, and Diego put his email address in the chat or wherever it is, so you at least know who he is and how you can get hold of us. But again, thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you, FCDOT folks, for really all that you've done to get us here, and really the opportunities we have of continuing to grow and improve our active transportation network. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thanks for joining us. I'm sorry I didn't see you there. Thanks, Tom, for pointing that out. All right, so we were just looking at the definition of what is active transportation, since this is called an active transportation plan. So active transportation includes all forms of non-motorized self-propelled travel, and that can be done for recreational purposes or transportation purposes. And examples would be walking and biking, but also riding a horse or hiking, running or rolling, for example, in a wheelchair, a scooter, on a scooter or a stroller. But there's a small exception to this non-motorized self-propelled rule, and that includes electric micromobility vehicles. And you may see those around. The little scooters that are available in Arlington and DC are included in this definition. These type of vehicles usually use active transportation infrastructure, such as bike lanes and shared use path, and sometimes sidewalks as well. So they have very similar needs and operate very similar to a bicycle. So let's take a look at active transportation facilities by mode. So we have the pedestrians, the bicycles, and then hiking, mountain biking, equestrian facilities. And all of these facilities are very distinct from each other. So let's first look at the pedestrian facilities that we can plan for in this county. So sidewalks are the most basic facility that you all are familiar with. The urban sidewalks are a bit wider. They encourage social strolling and lingering. And they often have something like benches and street trees and lighting to enhance the space and the experience. And you can find those in the urban centers in Fairfax County, such as Preston Town Center or Mosaic District or Tysons. We also have a lot of suburban sidewalks, which are a little bit more narrow, usually 5 feet wide, which is the minimum standard for crosswalks to allow a person in a wheelchair to safely travel and also turn around. And then we have crosswalks. Crossing the streets can be done in 2 locations, usually at the intersection. So most of our crosswalks are at intersections, and they have different ways of presenting themselves. So the most common one is here on the left graphic, labeled as number 1, the 2 parallel stripes, and they're often found at signalized intersections. We also have these more visible crosswalks, the zebra crosswalks, that are also called high visibility crosswalks. But then there's the 3rd crosswalk. That's legally crosswalk, but it's actually not striped. So that's not widely known that this is actually a real crosswalk. because it doesn't have the striping. But legally, it doesn't make any difference. 1, 2, and 3 are all the same. On the right here, we have that second location of crosswalks, and those are not at an intersection. They're mid-block. It's often a trail crossing, or there is some sort of destination like a bus stop or a shopping center that is mid-block, and a lot of pedestrians would want to cross here. So that is often a high visibility crosswalk to alert drivers to expect pedestrians in the road, and there's always this pedestrian signage as well. We also have enhanced crosswalks. On the left here is a crosswalk with a pedestrian refuge island that allows pedestrian to cross one direction of travel at a time. And they have a safe place to wait for traffic to clear, so it makes it a lot more comfortable to cross. The crosswalk on the right has an enhanced signage, so it's a little bit hard to tell in the picture, but there is a push button, and then there are lights right here, and they start flashing when a pedestrian hits the button, and it alerts drivers from really far away that there are pedestrians either waiting to cross or already in the crosswalk, and that they need to slow down and pay attention to make sure there's nobody in the crosswalk. Especially when it's dark, it's sometimes really hard to see people on the road. So this is a really nice enhanced safety. However, it's not a signalized crosswalk, so cars are not necessarily, stopping for a red light. So pedestrians still have to wait for a safe gap in traffic before crossing. The signalized crosswalk is, of course, the safest and most protected way to cross a street. The pedestrians get the walk signal and can cross, and the only conflict they should expect is a right turning car that is supposed to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. Another new type of tool that we have in our toolkit now is a pedestrian hybrid beacon, which is a protected crosswalk. It stops the cars. You can see the red lights up here when a pedestrian pushes a button, and then they can cross the road safely without any conflicts. And those are installed at mid-block crosswalks, not at intersections. And then I guess a complete separation would be a grade separated crossing, either a pedestrian bridge or a pedestrian tunnel where there is no conflict with any car. So we see that often used to cross either a highway or train tracks or a body of water. So now we would like to hear from you, how you feel about being a pedestrian in Fairfax County. What do you experience walking or running or strolling around your neighborhood or to your work or shopping center or bus stop? If you have any thoughts about the pedestrian facilities we just presented to you. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. There's a little hand in the lower right corner. You can click on that, or if you're calling in, please press *3 to raise your hand, and then we will unmute you. Or you can place your comment or question in the chat.
Thanks, Nicole. We're going to start with Jeff. I'm going to unmute you.
Oh, thank you. For pedestrians and for walking, I have comments about Route 1 in particular, which I think is sort of been at a crisis level since I've lived here in terms of pedestrian fatalities and pedestrians getting hit just trying to cross Route 1. So the three ideas I wanted to share. Well, first, let me just acknowledge that Embark was really some bold ideas, and I think the future is really bright for Route 1. But something has to happen right now because Embark won't be happening for a while. And just last fall, someone was killed crossing the street on Route 1. So it's a regular occurrence. And I think what we can do right now, three things we could do right now are, number one, lower the speed limit north of Jeff Todd Way. Number two, and I think this was sort of mentioned in your presentation, but we need visible crosswalks, and that it should be on all legs of the intersection. A lot of the intersections are just crosswalks on two legs, on two sides, and they're not always visible. A lot of times the paint has worn off from the heavy traffic use. And also, I think a thing to look at is you know, in many of these intersections, you can't have right turn on red. I think the pedestrian lead time, there needs to be a pedestrian lead time where pedestrians actually have enough time to cross the intersection without any cars in the intersection. It's that dangerous. I don't know, I think it was a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, that a police vehicle hit someone. The police officer was making a right turn on red at an intersection, and there's just many intersections on Route 1 where it's just not safe to have right turn on red, and I think we should give pedestrians a lead time where they have the intersection to themselves so they can get across the intersection safely. It's the #1 problem with Route 1, and I think the focus has to be on safe crossings in order to save lives and to make it as safe as possible. Now, for Embark, I know there's a couple pedestrian tunnels as part of that. If the crossings can be at grade, that's even better. But there has to be a way for people to get across the street safely. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. Thanks, Jeff. Chris, would you like to respond to some of the efforts along the corridor?
Yep. Hopefully you can see and hear me now. So thanks, Jeff. We appreciate your comments, and that's first of all, I just want to again encourage everybody to talk to us tonight, because this is exactly what we're here to do tonight, either positive or negative. To some of your points that you made, first of all, the county has provided funding to VDOT to do a speed study with the intent of hopefully reducing the speed limit. So that is something that'll be ongoing here in the next year or so. But that is an important safety issue that a lot of folks have rallied behind now. Second of all, the operations of the signals, we've have been working with VDOT, and at the direction of Supervisor Stork and the Board of Supervisors, we were tasked with finding near-term, short-term things that can be done in the corridor to improve safety. And so VDOT has agreed to do a pilot of a group of intersections in the most heavily pedestrian area of the corridor between Sherwood Hall and Lockheed, to do things exactly such as you mentioned, such as giving the pedestrian what's called a leading pedestrian interval. And that starts the walk phase of the crosswalk 4 or 5 seconds before the side street goes. Unfortunately, we're not able to make it a full no turn on red, but the leading pedestrian interval is very effective to let the pedestrian establish their right of way in the crosswalk and just basically make themselves visible to drivers. Secondly, VDOT's agreed to add the high visibility crosswalk paint to many of the crosswalks in the corridor, again, like beginning now, like this year. On that point, though, you mentioned that they're faded. They often get faded in the wintertime, or they fade throughout the year, but in the wintertime, they can't really put down new crosswalk markings. So if there's one in particular or some in particular, you can either contact VDOT through their customer service portal, which is the my.vdot.virginia, or you could contact us or Supervisor Stork's office, and we could pass it on. VDOT will maintain those and will refresh those. And now that the weather's warm, they can do that. VDOT's also going to do some additional signage, some high visibility signage that warns turning drivers about the pedestrians. And then lastly, you mentioned the Embark and the upgrade of the corridor. There's multiple aspects to that, but the most important physical improvement will be the rebuilding of the Route 1 corridor, and it'll begin from the southern end, which is the 4-lane Route 1 right now, but then it'll progress through the northern end as part of the bus rapid transit system. And as part of those upgrades, there'll be a full sidewalk and parallel separated bicycle facility called a cycle track for the entire 8 miles of the corridor. And then also signalized crosswalks on the intersections, as well as you mentioned, a couple of underpasses. So the county has spent $55 million in the corridor over the past almost 20 years to do some of the basic infrastructure that wasn't there, such as crosswalks and sidewalks. That commitment was just a down payment, and so the effort is ongoing, as I said, with some immediate term fixes that VDOT can do this year. And if that pilot of some of those features are successful, we'll ask VDOT to expand that pilot to other locations in the corridor, and then within a few years when the corridor is rebuilt. But thank you again for those points.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chris.
Chris.
I'm going to read the question from the Q&A from Greg. We have a trail sidewalk along Collingwood Road near Colonel John Byers Park. It is used often by visitors, walkers, people with strollers, and bicyclists to the park, as well as to destinations in the local area, such as the Mount Vernon Hospital, Government Center, and Library. The asphalt trail is badly buckled by tree roots in one particular area. How can we get that part of the trail sidewalk fixed? And Nicole, I can go ahead and address this because I did look it up. So we have a walkway maintenance map. Fairfax County maintains some of the walkways in the county. Some of them are maintained by VDOT, some by the Park Authority, and some by private entities such as HOAs. So it's often difficult to tell who's maintaining what. So we do have this map that has many of the walkway facilities, sidewalks, trails documented in it. And I will post a link to it in the chat, but I did look up Collingwood Road, and there's a section near the park that's asphalt that's maintained by Fairfax County. So that's the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. And then looks like what's concrete along Collingwood Road is maintained by the VDOT, and then there is a small section that's maintained by the Park Authority. So it'll be really helpful for you probably just to check out this map, and that can direct you to the right people. Also, if you contact us or contact VDOT, we direct each other to each other quite frequently. So thank you for that question. And I don't see any other hands raised, Nicole.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lauren.
Oh, I just got one from
okay.
Jim. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Jim.
Okay, thanks. Hello. I couldn't resist chiming in on the last one. The real problem is the sort of unconnected nature of walking, running, or strolling, or any of those things. And it's partly because there's so many different people responsible for the walkways and pathways where you would walk. And I'm wondering how the plan itself can address that issue. And maybe some kind of MOAs or something that would allow for that to a much more connected experience based on just who's responsible.
Thank you. That's a great comment, and one we have heard multiple times over the past meetings. So that seems to be on top of the mind of many of our residents, that the maintenance issue, but then also how difficult it is to report an issue because there's so many different entities responsible. So the plan will definitely have a section on maintenance. It will make some recommendations on how to improve, the reporting experience, but also potentially the actual maintenance.
I don't know how to disconnect that.
Oh, sorry, I will do that. And that is all the Q&A and chat we have right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Let's look at bicycle facilities. So Fairfax County has many bicycle facilities, and we will have all these tools available to us as part of this planning effort. So let's look at the most basic one first, which is a shared street. Not every street can be shared safely, but there are definitely a lot of streets in Fairfax County that are can safely be shared by bicycles and pedestrians and cars. So those are our quiet neighborhood streets that have very little traffic, very low speed limits, and key is also that there is no center line, because cars go in the middle of the road usually, leaving some space for pedestrians and cyclists on the side. We also have roads that are currently shared because there's no other option. You can see this one here is a narrow road. There's just a narrow sidewalk. There's nothing on the other side. So many cyclists would stay in the roadway. It's a 25-mile-an-hour street. So one way this can be enhanced in the interim before a better facility like a bike lane or a shared use path can be built. Those are shared lane markings, which are basically alert drivers to look out for cyclists in the road, and they help cyclists find the best or safest location within the lane. Because in a narrow road like this, when it's the lane is too narrow to have a car and a bike side by side with a 3-foot clearance between them, then the cyclist is better off taking the lane, and the driver will need to pass crossing the double yellow line, which is now legal in Virginia. And we have bike lanes, of course, over 100 miles in Fairfax County at this point, and they are just the white stripe, solid stripe with the bike symbol, and they can either be two-way, like one on each side, going with traffic, or sometimes when the road is too narrow to have 2 bike lanes, so it would just be one bike lane in one direction and sharers in the other. And they provide cyclists their own space. It's not legal to park or drive in bike lanes. However, it's just a stripe, a painted stripe. So we do see cars encroaching onto this bike facility. So the comfort level is not necessarily, or the safety is not necessarily, there on every type of road, but they are a good improvement over a shared space. Then we have buffered bike lanes, which are providing some greater separation between cars and bikes. They're often the double wide stripe, often with a hatching in between, depending on how wide it is. And the buffer can vary in width from 2 feet up to 8 feet. And then we have off-street bicycle facilities that are completely separated from traffic, at least outside of intersections. So they're usually paved going along our major roads, so also minor roads, or they can go through parks. But we're also looking at more urban types of trails. This one is not in Fairfax County. This one is in Indianapolis, but it's a facility that we have used as a model, for example, for a planning effort in McLean, where there's not enough space for a separation between pedestrians and bikes. So an urban shared use path is a nice way of providing a comfortable space for cyclists as well. So here's the separated bikeway, which is pretty much like a shared use path. So it's outside the curb, but then there is a parallel sidewalk. So pedestrians and cyclists are separated. So all modes have their own space. And this facility is also known as a cycle track or as a protected bike lane. And they're also protected at intersections. So unlike a bike lane that would merge with traffic at the intersection, this type of facility is completely protected and has its own signal at the intersection where they can cross or make a turn using something that's called a protected intersection. And these can be either a two-way, like the image on the left here, or one-way, like the image on the right. That would be the opposing lane, just like a standard bike lane on the other side, just behind the curb. So why do we have so many different types of bicycle facilities where for pedestrians we have sidewalks? It can vary in width, but it's pretty much the same facility. While the facilities for biking really are very different and have different experiences. So in the past, we really focused on on-street infrastructure such as bike lanes and shared spaces and just traffic calming. But then we realized it only serves a small amount of people that feel comfortable biking on the street and being so close to traffic, and also with distracted driving, having no separation makes a lot of people nervous. So there may be a bunch of potential cyclists that wouldn't bike in a bike lane or in a shared street. However, if we build a separated, comfortable bike facility, it really serves everyone, and they're all happily riding their bike to where they want to go. And the key is that the one guy that was comfortable riding on street here in that not so comfortable scenario is still served. So this is the type of facility where we get the biggest bang for our buck. We support most of our population that's interested, and it's what the county is striving to provide for our active transportation users in the future. So this shows how these type of different cyclists can, the different type of categories in our population and how well they're represented. So the very experienced sports cyclists is a small number of the population, and you see them out there. But it's a small percentage, and they don't really need that much. Often they're comfortable riding in traffic, but often they appreciate bike lanes too. Then there is this group of about 10%, a little bit less, of somewhat confident cyclists. So they have been biking a while. They're doing pretty well on bike lanes if there's not too busy of a road, particularly urban bike lanes, but they would also ride off street. But then there's this big group between 50 and 56% of the population that really only want separation. They're not willing to ride in bike lanes. And if we don't provide that full separation, including intersections, this group is not going to ride. So that's why it makes sense for us to focus on providing this low stress infrastructure network that really serves a much bigger part of the population. So let's talk about your experience riding a bike in Fairfax County, or a scooter or other micromobility device. And what you think about the different type of facilities that we can potentially implement in the future. So if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. If you're calling in, please press *3 to raise your hand, or you can use the chat or Q&A.
Thanks. We'll start again with Jeff.
Thank you. I really like that comic with the bridge. There's this concept called bicycle boulevards, which I know I talked to some people during the Embark meetings about this. Some of the planners, they were familiar with it, and it's another. You can find in other towns. I'm not sure if Fairfax County has implemented any of these, but basically they are. What you look for is a low volume, low speed street, typically in a residential area, and you modify it with signage and paint to encourage bicycle travel and to discourage non-local traffic, which has become a big deal with these apps like Waze, where people find these roads. In Mount Vernon district, there are a lot of good potential roads that would make bicycle boulevards. One of them I was just riding on the other day is Old Mill Road, which is a very wide road in a residential area. That could be a really good connection from Mount Vernon Memorial Highway to all the way to Lucan Lane, which takes you to Route 1, where we know with Embark someday there will be a bicycle trail there to connect to. So that would be a good one. I think also Pole Road from Fry to Jeff Todd Way. It's another place where that would work. Fry Road from Route 1 all the way to Huntley Meadows Park, Muddy Hole Park, if you know where that is. And maybe a shorter one in a place like the Paul Spring Parkway from Fort Hunt Road to Bainbridge. It could be right along, that's right along a park. So that's a good place to do one of those. So I just wanted to throw that concept out because I haven't seen that in the county, and I think that's a really good idea because it has two benefits, really. It encourages bicycle travel and it discourages non-local traffic. And then for bike lanes, when you're talking about bike lanes, I think wherever possible, if, with the restriping, to find 6 feet instead of 5 feet for a bike lane, then it can be buffered. Most of these bike lanes are just 5 feet, and it's just a stripe of paint. I'm a regular on the Sherwood Hall lane, bike lanes, Sherwood Hall Lane bike lanes, and it's just not much protection between the parked cars where doors could open and the high-speed traffic on Sherwood Hall Lane, which is another really wide street. And I think where possible, another thing to look at is to have some separation using curbing or flexiposts. I know that's not possible if people have to get to a parking spot that involves, you know, like on Sherwood Hall Lane, you have to cross the bike lane to get to a parking lane. So it doesn't work everywhere, but I think there are places where it would work. For the shared use paths, I just wanted to make a comment about that. That's really great for business and tourism. And Mount Vernon District we've just got so much potential for tourism in Mount Vernon District. Down in Damascus, Virginia, the Creeper Trail down there is a 35-mile trail. They're getting 130,000 tourists every year riding that, and it's really revived the town of Damascus. And I'm a little biased. I think we have more to offer than Damascus, and I think you know, we have a lot of potential in the Mount Vernon District with. Of course, the Mount Vernon Trail is it's the Park Service, but it is really a big attraction. And connecting that to the trail along the Mount Vernon Memorial Highway, that project's underway, I know, and connecting that to the Jeff Todd Way Trail and to the Fairfax County Parkway. And also, I know there's work to finish the Gunston Road Trail to Mason Neck, and there's historic sites along there. And just one last point, I know that bike shares going in all over the county. This part of the county would be a really good place to have it. And I know that it's been on the horizon for a while, but the sooner the better, because I personally know a lot of people who would use bike share to get to Huntington Metro Station. And that would be a great way to get there. It would be less cars on the road. I did want to say one other thing about Fort Hunt Road. If we did a bike count there, I think you would find a huge number of bicyclists on Fort Hunt Road. It's just a heavily used route because people are taking it to the metro, and they're taking it to Route 1. There's the ramp there that connects to the Wilson Bridge deck. And so it's just a major bike route. And so I was at the restriping meeting, and I know Diego brought that up, that we need some type of facility there for bicyclists. So if there's any way to do that, I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing so many great points. I just quickly want to address a few of them. First, the bike boulevard. Thank you for bringing that up. That probably should have been in my slideshow. Bicycle boulevards were not included in the 2014 Bicycle Master Plan. So we have not implemented any of them for that reason. So we have looked at it. It wasn't anywhere in our comprehensive plan, but it's definitely a great tool in our toolbox, particularly in a suburban area like Fairfax County, where we have so many great neighborhood streets that could easily be enhanced to be very comfortable and well connected with the trail between cul-de-sacs, for example. And the great part about bicycle boulevards is that they don't take any right of way. So we don't need to build an extra facility, and it's very cheap to do. But it's something we need to get into our comprehensive plan in order to establish them successfully. And one of the roads that are on my radar for that is all the roads that currently receive traffic calming through our traffic calming program, because we know they go somewhere, because that's where the cars go. They're already traffic calm, so that those would be easily enhanced as a branded bicycle boulevard. So the branding is part of the concept to really highlight what this type of facility is. So thank you for sharing some of your suggestions for the Mount Vernon district where those would be a potential solution. So on the bike lanes, sorry, Chris, did you want to say something? No, okay. On the bike lanes, so we usually try to stripe it as wide as possible as part of the repaving process. The one exception is if they're not next to parking but against the curb. Sometimes we actually go smaller than 5 feet, 4.5 feet, in order to prevent parking in the bike lane. because a 5-foot bike lane, unfortunately, is exactly as wide as a parking lane, which creates another obstacle in the bike lane. So just taking that half foot, it takes from, you know, that distance to traffic, but it also helps keep the bike lane free of parked cars, which of course they can be ticketed, but that creates an issue for enforcement capacity. So that's something that VDOT has done over the past couple of years. But if we have space, particularly next to parked cars, a 6-foot bike lane or a small buffer between the cars and the bike lane definitely enhances the safety of that facility. And yeah, thank you for sharing all those thoughts on shared use path and bike share. We're definitely looking at places to add bike share in the Mount Vernon district. Chris, would you like to say something?
Yeah, please. And I just want to add one more point about Jeff's point about Fort Hunt Road. Subsequent to that paving meeting, after Diego and Supervisor Stork raised the issue of the fact that Fort Hunt was being paved, and if we could do anything, it would be helpful. VDOT has agreed to modify the striping plan for Fort Hunt to allow for some shoulder areas, some bike lanes, and some enhanced crosswalks as well. So there's not a lot of room there. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of opportunities for full bike lanes, but the addition of a small shoulder area will be something that will be beneficial to confident cyclists. This is not necessarily a solution for our all ages and ability cyclists, but as Jeff pointed out, those confident cyclists are already using Fort Hunt because it's an alternative to the Route 1 corridor. It's an arterial up and down that peninsula, both for cars and for bikes. And so when it is paved this summer, as a result of Supervisor Stork's intervention, we had not looked at it because it hadn't had the full width. And we're typically looking for roads that have that full width. So again, there's a little bit of improvement coming when that road is paved this summer.
Thanks, Chris.
Nicole, do we have time for one more?
Yes.
So we'll go to Jim.
Okay, great. Thanks. Building on kind of Jeff's comments about Fort Hunt, especially, I think it's really important to get some major routes, both north-south toward Huntington Metro that run up the peninsula, in between Route 1 and the Mount Vernon Parkway and the GW Parkway, Mount Vernon Trail. And Fort Hunt Road is the perfect one for that. It has a side path. I'm thankful for all the effort that VDOT did in response to Dan and Diego's inquiry to get more space on the shoulder. But I think there's a lot more you could do up and down Fort Hunt, and that should definitely be highlighted in the plan. And the other direction is the sort of east-west connections, and it's almost impossible to kind of go east-west, both because of the geography of the topography, and then also the geography of all the various subdivisions. So to get from the Mount Vernon Trail over to Route 1 and then on to the western part of the county, it's practically impossible. And I want to raise once again the need for those east-west connectivity between Mount Vernon District through Lee District and beyond. And I'm going to say one more time about the loss in the comprehensive plan of the 2 trails that were at the north and south ends of Huntley Meadows Park. And I really want to make sure that those are rethought and replaced in a way that's suitable for everybody's concerns. And I'd like to see those put back. And then also on the sort of cultural tour of Mount Vernon District, the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail plays that role. It's a nationally designated scenic trail. We're almost done. And I want to really state again the need to connect Mason Neck to the Cross County Trail and the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail to the Cross County Trail, so that you can get that good connectivity. It goes under I-95 and the railroad and Route 1. So it's a quite a undertaking, but if we don't get it in the plan, we'll never get there. So I really hope that connection through and under or over those main arterials and barriers gets addressed in the plan. And I think I had one more thing about bicycle use and experience on those bicycles, is that The ability to get to those big regional trails is really difficult. So people drive to them, to go onto the great trails. And I think if we had some way of identifying, like I noticed in Alexandria, they put up neighborhood bikeway signs, I think they're called. There's one on Royal Street that I use a lot. It's a great way to call attention to the fact that bicyclists are using sort of the on-street facility. They tried to put a bicycle boulevard there, but in good Alexandria fashion, they rejected it. But so I think that the neighborhood bikeway was kind of a good solution to that. And maybe there's some sort of in-between way that you could call more attention to the fact that there's more bicyclists using these connecting routes to the big, destinations and regional trails. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for sharing. On your last point, I think the most basic sign that has been around for a long time that usually wouldn't get much neighborhood opposition is just a plain old bike route sign. So bike route without, the whistles and bells that the bicycle boulevard has. I mean, that's a pretty well branded way, and then I could see how neighbors may be concerned about that attention drawn to their street, but just a bike route sign alerts both drivers and cyclists that this is like an important connection to a regional facility or destination for cyclists. All right, let's move on to the next topic, Jim. That kind of hints at I know you have already started to discuss the importance of hiking facilities in Fairfax County, as well as mountain biking and equestrian facilities. And all three type of active transportation uses are very similar in that they usually are done on natural surface trails. Natural surface trails are a lot more narrow than a sidewalk or a shared use path. They're usually in a natural setting. They either have crushed stone or some sort of natural material on the ground. So they're very different to construct and maintain than our standard transportation facilities. But they have a huge constituency in Fairfax County, and they're our great assets. As part of this process, we've heard from many, many people how much they enjoy the hiking trails in Fairfax, and that they are actually looking for better connectivity from between the neighborhoods and those type of natural trails. So connecting with nature in our survey is one of the top responses, or reaching a trail is one of our top responses. So I think in the past, as a Department of Transportation, we have focused more on true transportation facilities like the sidewalks and the trails and bike lanes. But the trails plan that this project is working with and updating has hiking trails on it from the 1970s. So we have many regional hiking trails as well as local ones. And mountain biking facilities are a special case too. They sometimes have these obstacles next to the trail for more experienced cyclists that would like to have some train some jumps. So we have a couple mountain biking parks with great trail infrastructure, very popular. Fountainhead is probably one of the best ones close to your area. Then Mason Neck has a couple really great ones. So we're definitely looking into hearing from you about your thoughts on hiking trails, mountain biking trails, and equestrian trails. So again, please raise your hand if you would like to speak, or press *3 if you're on the phone, or type a question into the chat or Q&A.
I'm gonna take it back to Jim.
Everything, we don't have that many people, so cut me off if I'm talking too much. That whole Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail is really great for that. It's sort of a braided trail. It has some bike routes, and some, like Mount Vernon Trail and GW Park Trail up to the north, are great for multi-use. And there's some areas where it has to split off. The bicycles have to kind of go on one route, and the hikers can go on another. And in the Mount Vernon district, we're kind of devoid of sort of natural area walking experiences. We have great linear places to go, but Huntley Meadows is the nearest, big park, and to try to get to Huntley Meadows, there's some great routes that you can walk from Vernon District over there, but not too many. And then along Little Hunting Creek is a great possibility for a greenway walking trail. It connects, I think Jeff mentioned John Byers Park. There's some other, or somebody did, but I don't know if it was Jeff, the person before. And that's another great linear corridor that would lead to Route 1, and underneath, I think that's one of the places that that Embark has an underpass. And then that connects up to Huntley Meadows, and then you could take also another route on Dogue Creek is another way to get there, and there's several places that connect Route 1 to Huntley Meadows, which would be great to have that as a sort of natural surface pathways along drainage routes and sort of easement areas. So I think getting to Huntley Meadows is really an important thing in terms of providing that natural experience for us. On the mountain bike side, there's a great, the Mount Vernon District Park has a very enthusiastic group of riders over there. They've been doing a lot of work there. I would like to see, another park like that somewhere in our district. I think it's a good size and it serves the neighborhood really well. And I'm not sure where that might be, but I think there's a need for another one then at that scale, so you don't end up having to get in a car and drive to a facility like this. So if there's one point I have to make, is you should be able to walk or ride or whatever to any of these places and not get in your car. It would be fantastic if it was just a better connected system of trails. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Jim. And thank you for drawing my attention to the Mount Vernon District Park. I wasn't aware, so now I have to look it up. Do you have any other comments?
I don't see any other chat or hands raised at this time.
Okay, good. Let's move on to complete streets. So far we have looked at specific active transportation infrastructure, the hard surface or soft surface in the case of hiking trails, linear facilities and crosswalks. Complete streets are taking it a step further. So it's basically designing a street with all users in mind. So you have the walking, biking, and driving infrastructure. But then there is also support infrastructure, which can be street trees, street lighting, street furniture, street art. The creating a sense of space, creating a sense of place, enhancing the experience, actually inducing walking because it's actually a beautiful corridor and comfortable corridor to walk along, not just safe, but actually fun and enjoyable. So a good example of what difference that can make is in those two pictures here, which are exactly the same road, one in the current condition and then enhanced with complete street infrastructure, both the multimodal and then the enhanced streetscaping. So you can see the yellow truck. So the cars are still on their road, they're not affected, but pedestrians have now a safe space, cyclists have their own bike lane. This is actually near a school, so you can see the school children walk along the road, so that's a very different experience for them. It's much safer, much more comfortable. During hot days, there's shade. At night, there's street lighting, and it's just like a more pleasant place to be. And cars probably will slow down because the visual signals this type of road sends is very different, very more urban, which helps slow down cars that don't feel like that's they own the space, and it's a car-centric road that often leads to higher speeds. So now let's look at the project and how we are hoping to plan for the future. So of course we have already plans that are planning for an active transportation future, and we actually have multiple plans that do so. So we have the Countywide Trails Plan that has been around since the 1970s. That's planning a off-street network of trails, both paved and unpaved. And it's a very comprehensive plan. It was very forward-looking. It was aiming to create a bicycle network for transportation and recreation, but also to serve hikers and pedestrians. And if you read some of the the literature that came with that, it's very current. So it's a great plan to have and a wonderful foundation for the ActiveFairfax transportation plan. Then we also have a bicycle master plan, which was established in 2014. And it's focusing mostly on on-street infrastructure, such as bike lanes and shared spaces and bike routes and those connections, taking advantage of some of our more quiet streets, and was making suggestions of, where to make those little connections between cul-de-sacs. So it's a really great network as well, but the two plans don't really quite talk to each other. The bike plan does have some trails on it that were of very significance to transportation. So the bike plan had a very strong focus on commuting, supporting commuters. And then we have special area plans. Special areas are activity centers in Fairfax County, such as that would be the Huntington area. I think there are multiple activity centers along the Route 1 corridor, but then of course the bigger ones like Tysons and Reston. So there are more than 20, and they all have their own plans. And with their plans come street designs, enhanced street designs. So they often have complete streets already integrated, and they come with these cross sections that you can see on the lower right that show the type of active transportation facility, and if there should be, the landscaping panel and how many lanes of travel. But it's in a different type of presented in a different type of way. So it's not the network map that the Countywide Trails Plan has or Bicycle Master Plan has. So unfortunately, all three plans sometimes plan for the same area, but different things because they were developed in different times with a different focus. So one goal of this project is to make sure that all these plans, first of all, merge the Trails Plan and the Bike Plan, and then make sure that the new plan, the ActiveFairfax Transportation Plan, is in sync with the special area plans. So then when development comes in, or Fairfax County or VDOT is constructing a capital project, that we know exactly what type of facility is desired in this specific location. Then we also have a new regional trail network plan, which is not a comprehensive plan, but it's a regional vision, which is driven by the Capital Trails Coalition, which is a group that's led by WABA, the Washington Area Association for Bicycling, and they envisioned this big trails network, and most of the jurisdictions in this area are part of this group, as well as the National Park Service and other big land holders. And the vision really is to create this off-street network that connects all of these jurisdictions, as well as the activity centers, transit, and some of the tourism destinations as well. And the network you can see here for Fairfax County is roads, trails that are already built in green, and planned trails that are part of our trails plan or on the bicycle master plan, but not yet constructed in orange. So part of this effort is to take a look at our current designated network and make updates to it, because as you can see, there are holes in it. It's not well connected, and particularly in the Mount Vernon area, but also in Drainsville area, closer to the Potomac River. So there are some holes in it that we would like to comprehensively look at to create this regional connectivity with our neighbors. So started to address the need for this plan already a little bit, the inconsistencies between the bike plan, Countywide Trails Plan, the area plans, but there are other reasons why this plan is so important at this time. So another issue with those plans is because they are from different times, they have started to become outdated. So some of the facilities that are proposed are not necessarily what we would like to see. For example, there was a strong focus on street infrastructure and the bike master plan, which was the best practice at the time. But now we know, we have this national best practice of focusing on the all ages and abilities infrastructure, which is mostly off-street protected. So we will need to go back and make sure that, especially along busy roads and bigger corridors, we have infrastructure that actually serves our needs. So we have to update those facility and design recommendations. The trails plan is a great foundation for that as well, but the trails, the design recommendation that come with those trails are currently not meeting national standards as well. So they're a little bit too narrow nowadays. Its trails are a little bit wider to accommodate more users and for safety reason. And also, we don't actually have a pedestrian master plan in the county, even though some of the plans do have some pedestrian elements, particularly the activity center plans. However, we're lacking some specific policy guidance and design guidance for pedestrian-specific design, such as curb ramps and crosswalks, and how many crosswalks should be at a intersection. It was mentioned earlier that many of the intersections along the Route 1 corridor don't have 4 legs of the crosswalk stripe. So these type of things is something, the opportunity here to implement as part of a comprehensive plan update as a policy. And we had those, this is our current practice, but we didn't have really something to point to. So it's not a full-fledged pedestrian master plan. It's not going to map out every single sidewalk, but it will provide those best practices in a recommendations in a policy and design format. However, we already actually have a policy in our comprehensive plan that says every road in Fairfax County should have a sidewalk on both sides of the road. So it's already in there, but it's not well known. It needs to, be made more. It needs to move on the map, for example, in order to be implemented more consistently. Then we are hoping to include some guidance on safety specifically. So of course, all active transportation facilities help with safety issues, but then there are a specific design, road design options and in our toolkit that really prioritize pedestrian safety and bicycle safety that can systematically be implemented. And we will provide some guidance on some of those. The project is broken into at least 2 phases, potentially 3, but we are currently in phase 1. So phase 1 started last July and is concluding this summer. So we've done a lot of background work before we started this public engagement process. So what we have done since the summer was basically to look at existing conditions, analyze a lot of data, look at existing facilities, demographics. We did a lot of analysis and mapping, and also looked at existing policies and plans, both at the local and the state level. And then now we are in our community engagement phase. So we're hearing, about what vision our population has for active transportation, both for recreational and transportation purposes. And we have mapping tools online that help pinpoint specific issues, but also future trails and complete streets corridors. And then the outcome of phase 1, before we move into phase 2, is basically a vision document that takes all this information from our analysis, as well as the public outreach, to create a vision for active transportation, as well as goals and specific objectives that will form the foundation for the recommendations in phase 2. We're also working on a strategic safety program plan, which is kind of its standalone part or task of this plan, which will be finalized at the end of phase 1, which will provide some recommendations and a kind of work plan for the county on how to address road safety issues in a forward-looking way, not just reacting to fatalities and crashes, but try to find a systematic way of enhancing road safety for all users. Then in phase 2, we will start to look at recommendations. What are the type of facilities we would like to see in specific kind of in different land use contexts? We have rural areas, we have suburban areas, we have urban areas. So developing a toolkit that tells us, what type of road will trigger what type of active transportation facility, depending on the land use, will help us navigate, this big map and start to update it to bring it to best practice and current standards. So we work on the network recommendations as well as programmatic recommendations, such as, safety campaigns or just, fun events that encourage usage of the active transportation network. And then we also will look at implementation guidance and then funding prioritization. There's a huge need for active transportation infrastructure all over the county and only that much money. So providing some guidance on what are the key priorities and geographic areas, where's the highest demand, where's the highest need, is something we can establish as part of this plan, which will inform future funding decisions. And then at the end, we will update the comprehensive plan with the new network and some policies as part of the policy plan. So now it's your turn to share your thoughts on what is, where do you see the county in the future when it comes to active transportation? What is your vision? Where would you like us to, focus on either, what type of infrastructure or what would you like us to focus our funding on? So please share your ideas, and you can do so again by raising your hand or pressing *3 if you're on the phone, or you can type your comment or question in the chat.
Not seeing any hands or questions or chats.
Okay, great. I think many of you have already shared your vision as part of your previous discussion.
Yes.
So thank you, and we have taken notes on those suggestions. So if there are no further comments on that issue, we can continue the presentation. So other ways to share your thoughts are the community survey, and we really encourage everyone here tonight to take the survey, let other people know about this opportunity to share their thoughts. It takes about 14 minutes on average to fill out the questionnaire. There's some really interesting questions in there. For example, how would you prioritize, space in the right-of-way? What is more important to you? For example, is a wide sidewalk more important to you than a grass buffer next to the sidewalk? So you can help us determine some of those things that take over the right-of-way, because sometimes you can't provide it all. So hearing back from you how you would prioritize those different elements of a street will really inform our future designs. There's also a visual survey that shows some of these facilities that we have discussed earlier. And it allows you to tell us, is that something you would feel comfortable walking or biking on, or not so comfortable? And that will help us determine, what type of facilities most people would feel comfortable in. So the survey is available in 8 different languages, and you can access it by going to the project website at fairfaxcounty.gov. It's always easiest to just search for ActiveFairfax to get to the website. Then there are also 2 maps. One map is focusing on destinations and barriers. So you can zoom into your neighborhood or area of interest and place points in specific locations where you would like us to inform us about a problem or a destination you would like to reach. You can provide a little description of what you would like to us to focus on, and even upload pictures of the issue. And then there's a map that allows you to draw new trails or bikeways or complete street enhancement into a network map. So the map shows the existing planned network from the bicycle master plan and the countywide trails plan. And it's a pretty comprehensive network, but it's not perfect. So there are new destinations that weren't around when the other plans, were established, or, they just miss, certain neighborhoods that are not well connected, or school is not well connected. So if you look into your area of interest, and Huntley Meadows came up earlier, there are missing segments, and they can be drawn in, and you can pick between a hiking trail or a shade use path, or if you would like to see the complete streets enhancement along a certain corridor. So again, you can type in your information, you can draw in the line of the proposed segment, upload pictures if you like, and if somebody has already suggested an alignment that you wanted to add, you can actually like that suggestion so that you can see that some suggestions from the public have gathered a lot of votes, and it's really interesting to see some of those very popular suggestions. And the next steps for the project are, these tools I just mentioned are available until May 15th. So our public engagement will continue until May 15th, and then we will take that information and develop the vision goals statement that reflect the key outcomes for active transportation in Fairfax County. And then we will take the draft document to the public for review, so they'll get another chance to chime in there. And then for to the Board of Supervisors for approval in June, which will conclude phase 1 this summer. So this is the end of the formal part of the presentation. Again, though, here's the project website. You can also email us your comments or questions at ActiveFairfax@fairfaxcounty.gov, or you can reach us by mail at Fairfax County Department of Transportation, Attention Active Transportation Program, 4050 Legato Road in Fairfax. So we are going to stick around for a few more minutes. If you have any sort of questions about the project or any other information you would like to share with us, please use the Q&A feature or the chat, or raise your hand.
Go to Jim first.
Yeah, I just want to know how you're coordinating the trail plan with the Fairfax County Park Authority and Nova Parks.
Thank you. That's a great question. So we're closely coordinating both those entities. They're big landowners. Of course, many of our trails go through their parkland, and nothing will be on the plan that they wouldn't improve. So we need to coordinate closely, get approval and agreement on certain trail locations. Also, to distinguish between what is a quote-unquote transportation trail or regional trail versus like a neighborhood trail or just a hiking trail. So we need to discuss surfaces and design standards to a certain extent before we can add them to the map. But they are part of our regular meetings and working groups as well.
And Jim wrote a nice little description. I can read that now. I would like to see a well-connected system of natural surface trails that competes for funding with paved trails, including getting to our parks and natural areas from our neighborhoods and destinations, and pathways that connect regional natural parks and destinations together. You should be able to walk from Manassas to Mason Neck along the Occoquan, or from Mason Neck to Loudoun County along the Potomac. Address park and natural area deficits in the Route 1 corridor by utilizing existing drainage and utility easements linking to parks. Huntley Meadows, Mount Vernon, these are examples. Huntley Meadows, Mount Vernon Woods, small parks, Little Hunting Creek and Doe Creek, Cameron Run Trail to Huntington Metro, and existing trail next to 495 exit ramp to Mount Vernon Trail. And then we got a couple thank yous. So thank you everyone for your attendance.
And thank you for that very nice description of the vision. This is really very useful information for us to have. So thank you for sharing. Is there any other?
Yeah, and I just wanted to add
I just wanted to add a couple follow-ups for myself. First of all, full disclosure, I should have said before that I was not driving. I have a learner's permit driver in the family, and so I was a passenger when I was talking earlier. But I wanted to follow up on Jeff's comments on Route 1 and the safety. So in the context of what we're doing tonight, the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan, some of those elements that we talked about that we're piloting on Route 1, we would hope to replicate as part of our systematic safety plan or broad in a broader way, emphasize that those type of solutions for the entire county, not just a pilot program on Route 1, that empowering the subject of safety is important as in part of this Active Fairfax Transportation Plan. So I forgot to make that connection between what we're doing on Route 1 today and how it fits in our future goals for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do you have any other questions or comments?
I don't see anything else, Nicole.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, this is really great information. The hyper-local information is so important. It's a big county. We don't know the county as well as you do, your specific area. So thank you for coming out tonight and sharing your thoughts and your vision for Fairfax County in regards to active transportation. And I want to see if the supervisor would like to say some parting words.
Yeah, Supervisor Stork or Tom Bashadny, Director, would you like to say any closing words to close us out?
So thanks, Chris, and thanks, Nicole, for leading the presentation tonight. I would say I also want to thank all the people who provided comments this evening. They are certainly very helpful to us in developing the plan. And I would also just encourage you to, if you haven't taken the survey, please do, and please share it with your friends and family, coworkers. The more input that we get, the better plan that we'll be able to develop. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your input, and we look forward to hearing your ideas in the survey. Have a good night.
And thank you from me as well, Supervisor Stork. Appreciate everything, Tom, Chris, Nicole, and really all the comments that we got tonight. Thank you very much, and we do value them. And I think we know we have a long way to go, but this plan will really help make that difference and get the funding that we ultimately, I think, must have if we're truly going to reduce the carbon emissions that we have, as well as increase the active transportation, which is essential to good health and I think our regional prosperity. So again, thank you all very much for your work and for all the comments.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Supervisor. All right. And that concludes today's meeting. Thanks again for joining and have a good night.